Dieser Deal hat ganz schön Schlagzeilen gemacht. Die kanadische KI-Firma Cohere übernimmt Aleph Alpha aus Heidelberg. Und der Bundesdigitalminister, der hat sich persönlich dafür eingesetzt. Warum ihm das wichtig ist? Für Kanada sind Abhängigkeiten von den USA mindestens so bedrohlich wie für Europa. Deshalb sieht Minister Karsten Wildberger großes Potenzial für Kooperation. Und bei der TECH, der großen Handelsblattkonferenz für die Zukunft der Wirtschaft, hat der Minister am Montag nochmal betont, er sieht in der Verbindung das Potenzial für einen transatlantischen KI-Champion. Schon am Tag zuvor war Cohere-Chef Aidan Gomez selbst auf der TECH. Zu den Details rund um den Deal, bei dem Cohere mit 20 Milliarden Dollar bewertet werden soll und bei dem die Schwarzgruppe 600 Millionen Dollar investiert, kann oder will sich Gomez gerade nicht äußern. Mit ihm zu sprechen lohnt sich trotzdem. Gomez gehört als Co-Autor des berühmten Forschungspapers Attention is all you need, nämlich zu den Menschen, die die KI-Revolution erst angestoßen haben. In unserem Talk ging es um seinen ersten Kontakt zu Nobelpreisträger Geoffrey Hinton, um einen Manager, der auf Cohere gewettet hat, ohne überhaupt ein Produkt zu sehen, und um die Gefahr der Konzentration von Macht. Und damit herzlich willkommen zu einer besonderen Folge von Handelsblatt Disrupt. Ich bin Larissa Holzki und ich hoste nicht nur diesen Podcast, sondern auch die Tech. Und wenn Sie auch künftig jederzeit wissen wollen, was und wer die Wirtschaft bewegt, dann testen Sie doch auch mal das Handelsblatt-Abo. Ob Märkte, Unternehmen oder technologischer Fortschritt, wir ordnen die Entwicklungen ein, sprechen mit den Entscheiderinnen und Entscheidern und recherchieren die Zusammenhänge. Mit einem Probeabo bekommen Sie den vollen Zugriff auf alle unsere digitalen Inhalte, 4 Wochen lang für nur 1 Euro. Mehr Details gibt's in den Shownotes. Und damit geht es jetzt direkt zur Tech nach Heilbronn und zu meinem Gespräch mit Cohere-Chef Aidan Gomez. Aidan, welcome to Heilbronn. It's a pleasure to have you. Most people here may have first heard of you just a few weeks ago. Cohere made headlines by buying the German AI startup Aleph Alpha, and our Federal Minister for Digital Affairs, who joins us tomorrow, personally championed that deal. This alone will make a lot of people here very curious about who you actually are. So let's start with you. I think the most well-known anecdote about you is probably that you grew up without internet in a cabin in the woods, an hour and a half outside of Toronto. I heard you hated it at the time. Do you miss it today?
I do miss it, yeah. I think I was super lucky to grow up disconnected from technology, and I think it's actually what inspired my drive to contribute to it. Because when something feels just out of reach, like everyone else has it, but you don't, there's nothing more motivating than that. Mm-hmm. It was also just like a really, like you said, I didn't appreciate it when I was in it, having no internet and being in the middle of the woods. My driveway to my house was like 1.5 kilometers long. I couldn't walk to see my friends. But now I crave that. Like I live in London, I live in Soho, which is like the middle of London. And every year I have to go back to the woods, and I'm from Canada, and the maple syrup season starts around March, February, so we go and tap the trees, make maple syrup. It's a really special place for me.
In Germany, we constantly debate whether we fall behind internationally when our children don't have tablets in kindergarten and learn to use ChatGPT in primary school at the latest. Would you say that you're the living proof that that's nonsense?
Well, kindergarten might be early for iPads. I would also want to let the child's brain develop a bit on its own before introducing that. I don't know if I'm evidence that it's a good idea, but I'm an evidence that not having that much access to tech at least doesn't hurt you that much. Mm-hmm.
After school, you ended up at the University of Toronto. That's where Geoffrey Hinton was a professor, a famous AI researcher, and later a Nobel Prize laureate. You stumbled upon his work almost by accident, as far as I know. Is it true that you pitched him research ideas without even knowing that he was a legend?
Yeah, he was just, I was reading papers on AI, and he was one of the authors of one of these papers, and his email was there. And so I just, now he's a Nobel Prize winner and super famous, but I just shot him an email and he actually replied to me. Mm-hmm. So I think that really speaks to his character, that some random undergrad with a bad research idea can shoot him an email, and he actually took the time to respond.
Yeah, maybe you were not so random at all. By the age of 20, you got an internship at Google and became a co-author of one of the most famous AI papers of all time. Please tell us in simple terms, why was attention is all you need such a shift, and when did you recognize it?
Well, I was co-author with this guy right in the front, Jakob, who's an incredible German computer scientist and was a fantastic mentor.
And he will be on stage tomorrow.
Sorry?
He will be on stage tomorrow.
Yes, he'll be on stage tomorrow, so come see his talk.
Listen to him.
What was the question?
It was, why was attention is all you need such a shift for the AI landscape?
So I think the special thing about attention is all you need was its ability to scale. It was built so that, back in the day, we used to train everything on a single GPU. And the GPUs we had back then were tiny. We could maybe fit millions of parameters into these cards. And when we were doing the work at Google, we wanted to scale that up to training on 16 GPUs or dozens of GPUs. And that was a huge shift. So we designed the architecture in a way that was very compatible with that scaling, with no real sense, or at least certainly I didn't have any real sense of what was going to come. And then it turned out that because we had designed it for scaling, training on multiple chips instead of just one, as the world started to realize that scale and the immensity, the size of these models mattered so much, it became the go-to architecture because it was the one designed for scale. And I think maybe Jakob will agree, what's perhaps most shocking coming up on next year, our 10-year anniversary of the model, is that we're still using the transformer. We're stuck on it, And I think as scientists, we crave, we don't hold it too dear, We don't want our creation to live and succeed forever. We want humanity to beat it. We want to succeed. We want others to succeed on top of our work. And so I'm very excited for what's next. We unlocked the scaling era. I think maybe the next era is efficiency. Humans are so remarkable in our ability to learn in such a short amount of time with such limited data. These models do not have limit. They need tons and tons of data. And so maybe the next generation of architecture or training methods will come about as a product of finding efficiency, finding data efficiency in these models instead of just scale, make them bigger.
Nach einer kurzen Unterbrechung geht es gleich weiter. Bleiben Sie dran.
Strukturwandel, geopolitische Konflikte, steigende Kreditrisiken und digitale Disruption. Das Marktumfeld für Banken und Fintechs bleibt herausfordernd und bietet gleichzeitig enorme Chancen. Beim Handelsblatt Bankengipfel am 2. und 3. September in Frankfurt kommen führende Akteure aus Politik, Aufsicht, Finanzwelt und Wirtschaft zusammen, um Lösungen für die kommenden Herausforderungen zu entwickeln. Jetzt anmelden unter handelsblatt-bankengipfel.de und sparen Sie 15% mit dem Code Bankengipfel26.
I mean, you started Cohere to drive the research forward. What you do today is considered an alternative to OpenAI and Anthropic. You build AI and software that businesses can use to deploy chatbots and agents and automate processes. So what sets you apart, and what's the next thing you will do?
So the big thing that sets Cohere apart is that we're focused on critical industries. So think the bedrock of the economy, telecom, energy, the grid, healthcare, financial services, defense, government. And the reason why we're so focused there is that our product is very tailored to privacy and security. So instead of asking our customers to send their data to us, and we host it on some big cloud, some hyperscaler, instead what we do is we send our infrastructure, our models and our product to them to sit on their infrastructure. So I like to say that while we can serve on the cloud, et cetera, if you want to use an American hyperscaler, please do, it works. But we can also serve a kilometer under the surface of the ocean in a submarine. And so these varying degrees of privacy can be completely achieved with us.
And when you won your first large enterprise customer for one of your most recent products, you were definitely not competitive in that area. And I think that makes for a remarkable story for our audience here. The CEO of the Royal Bank of Canada decided to bet on Cohere, even though at the time something like Copilot was arguably better. So you've said since that this bet changed your entire trajectory. Why?
Yeah, well, Copilot, better is a stretch. I would say our product just didn't exist at that point. And so very quickly, I think it'd be Copilot. But yeah, he took a bet before the product existed to be a design partner with us. And that came out of spending time with him. There's kind of like a little Canadian community that meets once a year to discuss politics, the economy, etc. And I got to meet him there. And then he said, I want to buy your product. And I said, okay, it's not built yet. It's still in development. And he was just an incredible ally. When big organizations, they want to do the safe thing. They're very at least in Canada, I'm sure as well in Europe, there's high risk aversion. And the safe thing to do is just buy from the biggest name that you know. But that's actually not the highest ROI strategy. You have to take risk to get ahead. And so what I've seen in the past 2 years, let's say, is a culture shift taking place in Canada and Europe towards ambition, towards an understanding that we need to build the technology we consume. And a prerequisite of that is that our economies, our companies choose our players. So I think that's at the heart of a successful sovereign technology strategy. We talk about sovereign AI, that's the part of sovereignty that I can contribute to. But broadly, sovereignty itself, we have to buy from our guys, from our partners. And taking that risk to be able to support them has huge downstream impact. Capitalism is a fantastic system. It finds extraordinarily efficient methods of delivering what the world needs. And it is fantastic at aligning interests. But one thing that doesn't come naturally out of capitalism is strategic sovereign imperative. That has to be intentionally introduced. Capitalism will very happily outsource all of our critical industry to whoever sells it to us cheapest. They'll give it all away because that's the most efficient solution. But it is not the right solution for building and protecting a nation.
I think...
Thank you.
There's probably no other leader who chooses a homegrown startup over the best available technology unless there's real need, and maybe there is with the political tensions growing. When you look at those conversations you just mentioned with customers, would you say that there's now a window of opportunity for Canada and for Europe to become more technologically independent?
Absolutely. There's a political will and a fundamental reality that necessitates sovereignty and technology. The past 30 years have seen a sort of gradual, what I would describe as hollowing out of technological capability within Canada, within Europe. And we've introduced what is ostensibly a single point of failure. Everyone buys technology from one place, and if that place goes through political turmoil, if some crisis is introduced, that is a fundamental risk to the entire democratic project. I'm a computer scientist. You're taught, like on Computer Science 101, do not build single point of failure. That is just architecturally in a system, the worst design. And somehow, strategic planners and us as a community, we have walked into that reality. The good news is, I think over the past 18 months or 2 years, we've woken up. There is a renewed understanding of the risk of the status quo and a will to invest and build our own set of capabilities. So I'm deeply proud to be part of Canada and Germany teaming up on what I believe is probably going to be the most important technology for at least the next quarter century. I think these are two countries that have such shared values and such a commitment towards protecting the democratic project and the values that have done so much good over the past 80 years, that to be a part of that is an honor, and I'm just thrilled to be able to do it in partnership with Germany.
Yeah, I see, and hear a lot of people agreeing with you and like what you said, but there's, to be honest, little reason to be confident when you look at the track record for building significant tech companies. Canada has built one in the last 25 years, Shopify. For Germany, it's even worse. Our most recent tech champion, SAP, just turned 54. So what's your analysis? Why is that, and how do we change it?
Well, I think you have to, first off, I think that, like I said, Canada and Europe have woken up. Mm-hmm. There's actions being taken to improve this. The one thing that Canada and Europe do exceptionally well is education. Like consistently, we just keep pumping out the best generation of computer scientists on the planet, right? Like that just keeps happening, and across many fields, physics, et cetera, et cetera.
But that's only one ingredient you need.
Exactly, that's only one ingredient. The next step is commercialization. And to commercialize, you need a few things. There's like 3 core ingredients. One is the talent, which I just said we build the best in the world, again and again and again. So we can do that. The second is capital, and the third is a market. So you need talent, revenue, and funding to get started. On those latter two, I think we have underperformed. Similar to our tech strategy, we've decided to take our national wealth, our pensions, et cetera, and hand it to capital managers in other countries who invest in indices and don't do any sort of active management, don't deploy things strategically. And that has led to what founders call the valley of death, where there's big companies in your economy. Maybe you can get some small companies that just need like $1 million, $5 million, that type of thing. But as you look in the mid-stage, growth stage, crossover, capital is nowhere to be found. Your only option is to go fundraise in Silicon Valley. And so that is a gravitational pull into one place, which is not Europe or Canada. So I think fixing the capital problem should be a very high priority. Setting up sovereign wealth funds that do have a strategic sovereign mandate needs to happen. The second part is something we've already discussed, which is the market. We have to buy and support our own champions. And I think the last thing I want to say about this is partnership is really important. If sovereignty just means, we're all going to build it ourselves, that is hyper inefficient. They'll be too small to get scale, to become global champions, and that won't make a competitive Europe or a competitive Canada. Instead, what we should do is we should team up and create alliances like what we're doing between Canada and Germany on key strategic files like AI, quantum, energy, et cetera. So I hope we see more of that.
Mm-hmm. And talking about capital, I've heard that you found some nearby. Let's get specific and look at Cohere. So our sources suggest your valuation now stands at around $20 billion after the acquisition of Aleph Alpha, which is roughly 1/50 of what Anthropic is worth now. The ratio of capital raised is similar. What's your plan to have or to hold your ground with such unequal resources?
We're fortunate in that our product is actually dramatically more capital efficient than our competitors. So one thing that our competitors do is they make you send your data to their hardware. So they're hosting the models themselves, they're paying for all this infrastructure. So if you look at the tens of billions of dollars that they've raised, a ton of it, the overwhelming majority, goes towards inference and serving. Whereas with Cohere, because we take our technology and deploy it on the customer's infrastructure, it's actually our customers who foot that bill. So it's extremely high margin and dramatically more capital efficient. That being said, we still need to build the models. So developing them in the first place, that's something that we can compete at. That's something that we've been doing for years, and that with, a new injection of capital, we will be able to create a much larger tier of model. So the latest rumors are that Mythos is about 10 trillion parameters. Cohere will push towards very, very large scale and close the gap between us and others over the next year or two substantially.
Depending on who you ask, there are various doomsday scenarios for the future of AI. So one is AI takes control. The other is AI becomes very powerful, and it's OpenAI CEO Sam Altman who stays in control. Jokes aside, some of the most prominent thought leaders in AI have a rather dark view of what the AI disruption could mean for us, including Geoffrey Hinton. You tend to have a more positive outlook. Why?
I have a positive outlook in the sense that I don't believe the doomsday scenarios, but I am very conscious of the risks. And I think, one of the biggest risks is this concentration of power that you're describing. And it's something that we're trying to provide alternatives to. We need a diversified set of suppliers on critical technology. And right now, we have an opportunity to build that if we invest and bet on champions. So I hope that the world will make that choice and will follow that path. I'm also concerned about how AI actually gets deployed into the real world. I think there are serious risks, and the cyber risk is one that I think we all need to take extremely seriously. It is a 0 to 1 type risk. There is a level of scale that can be achieved by these models being able to hack and compromise systems that just was impossible before. We couldn't get enough computer scientists to go out and probe every single IP on the internet and try to find ways in. That is now fully possible. So we need to start thinking about how to defend from that. And we also need to start thinking about how significant of a capability that is. If you can compromise the software that drives our grid, our water systems, our financial institutions, our healthcare systems, you can shut down a country. You have that leverage over them. And so if we don't retain the capability to protect against that, it is an existential risk to our countries and the safety of our people. So we have to invest. And these risks are real and something that we at Cohere are doing our best to galvanize support to build a compelling option beyond just the United States and China.
Aidan, unfortunately, our time is up. It was so interesting talking to you. And my colleague from matchmaking told me that there were far more people that wanted to meet you that you had time for. At least we managed a short introduction. Thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Thank you.
Und das war's auch schon wieder mit Handelsblatt Disrupt. Wenn es Ihnen gefallen hat, dann abonnieren Sie den Podcast doch und sagen Sie es weiter. Bis hoffentlich nächste Woche. Redaktion Larissa Holzki, Produktion Nico Fecke.
Die aktuelle PwC-CEO-Survey zeigt, viele deutsche CEOs sind unzufrieden mit ihrer Transformationsgeschwindigkeit und nur wenige erzielen bisher echten, messbaren Mehrwert mit KI. Wenn sie das ändern wollen, brauchen sie mehr als Piloten und Präsentationen. PwC Deutschland macht aus KI-Experimenten skalierbare Lösungen mit einer datenzentrierten KI-Strategie, klar priorisierten Business Cases und belastbarem Mehrwert im Kerngeschäft. Bereit für echten Impact? Mehr unter pwc.de/ki.